There's something out there. You're listening to stuff.
Command, are you picking anything up on radar? Looks like a giant flying tic-tac.
I haven't seen them since I became a Christian.
You had a visitation from your spirit guide.
Welcome to another video. Well, there's a lot of excitement out there. We have a whistleblower in the government who is exposing extraterrestrial vehicles and bodies that the government has acquired. Okay, and the problem that I noticed right away is that usually whistleblowers experience persecution. Snowden, for example, he's a whistleblower. There's no doubt about that. And he, of course, he doesn't live in the United States, right? So now we have a whistleblower that is following protocol, okay, and kind of teasing out information. It looks very suspicious to me, to say the least. The other thing I noticed is there seems to be inconsistencies in the testimony when comparing it to historical data and research. We have no mention of any type of spiritual connection to these phenomena. But when you look into the research, there seems to be an obvious connection. Okay, when you get into the occult or the New Age movement, these are the people that are seeing these things on a regular basis. Okay, the whole thing is full of that. So whether you're dealing with people who have had the alien abduction experience or individuals who will kind of conflate that with the spirit guides of the occult, there's an obvious connection there, okay? And then, of course, you have the whole debate on, where we came from, right? Which goes into creation versus evolution. But I think most scientists have moved into the area of intelligent design because there are logistical problems with evolution. That's why they throw billions of years at this stuff. And there's no observable scientific models involved in evolution. They always have to come up with another excuse because you have, for example, the moon moving away from Earth, and you also have the sun shrinking at a particular rate. And of course, if you use the billions of years that they have to be involved in evolution, of course, those scientific models fall apart. So you just have to come up with other things, and it just doesn't fit together. And so a lot of the people have moved into intelligent design, but rather than to, believe that God created our world and our galaxy and the cosmos, they believe that beings from another galaxy or somewhere else in the cosmos, alien life, has seeded mankind on the planet. Okay, and they are the ones that have brought us here. They are the ones that have made life possible on planet Earth. And some people refer to them maybe as space brothers, or individuals involved in the occult will refer to these encounters as encounters with their spirit guides. Now, the first thing I'd like to say is I believe that people who have had abduction experiences or supposed encounters with spirit guides or all these other type of phenomena that we're going to get into, I believe they're telling the truth. Okay, some people would say, well, they're mentally ill, or they're on drugs, or they're seeking attention. I don't think so. There's a lot of consistencies in these stories, and even when you get into folklore and some of the Irish myths and things that people might consider ridiculous, like the secret societies or different dimensions, it all kind of goes back to the same thing, whether you're dealing with aliens or those things, okay? And it has to do with the Genesis 6 account. You're dealing with things after the flood, right? That was when all this really started, because of the evil that had multiplied after the Genesis 6 account, when the sons of God copulated with the daughters of men. Okay, we have two different theories on that. Some people say it was the sons of Seth, but I don't think that fits, and I've made videos about that. You can look at those things. But uh, technology was dispersed, knowledge was given to mankind that they were not ready for. When you get into the Tower of Babel, you have the type of resurrection of those technologies that Noah wasn't playing around with. And according to the polytheistic doctrines, when you get into Freemasonry, I mentioned the secret societies, you have this information, this wisdom that had been passed down from the Nephilim, from the angelic spiritual dimension to man, hidden in different places, and that's what happened. And when mankind got together and they built the Tower of Babel, the ziggurat, to try to manipulate God, God temporarily disinherited the nations. You can find that in Deuteronomy 32:8. Okay, where he divided up the nations according to the sons of God, and they rebelled. But really, it all goes back to these kingdoms after the Tower of Babel. Okay, mankind was supposed to spread out and multiply across the earth, but he rebelled, so God disinherited the nations, handed them over to principalities. That's where you get into the table of nations. That's why Jesus sent out 70 disciples apart from the 12 apostles. He was sending a message that he was infiltrating, he was taking back the world, okay? And it's represented in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar that Daniel interpreted, which starts out with Babylon and goes down to the feet of iron and clay. Okay, so you have Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and the feet of iron and clay, which is a two-part kingdom. But before that, you have Egypt and Assyria. Okay, what am I getting at? I'm getting at the fact that all this stuff is traced back to there. And when you get into Egypt, when you get into the secret societies, you can see here we have the all-seeing eye. That comes from Egypt. Okay, it all goes back. This stuff all traces back. In fact, you can take this all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Okay, it's very logistically sound. Okay, you're not jumping all over the place. It may seem that way when you try to explain this in a short video like this, but really you could go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and you can see the progression of these things. Okay, and you can see it in the hieroglyphs and other things with Egypt. Really, when you get into the construction of the pyramids, I think it's fair to speculate that something was helping them build those structures. Okay, and not only is that something that's a wonder, you also have astrology mixed in with this stuff as well, which is all connected in with these type of phenomena. When people are seeing these things, you have the constellation of Orion, right? You have all this symbology, and it's all mixed in. And when you get into the government, okay, because a lot of people are going to look at this stuff, they're going to say, well, the government has an involvement. Well, I wouldn't say the government, I would say the deep state. Okay, I think that just putting it all on the shoulders of the government, I don't think it would be fair to say, if you believe, you're one of those people that believe there's an agenda out there. I think it goes all the way back into the spiritual dimension, but of course that manifests in a lot of different ways, and there is involvement, down from the hierarchical position of the principalities. It moves into the area of human beings, okay? And that's where you get into the secret societies, okay? You get into, the foundation with Freemasonry. Then you have, of course, the Illuminati and the Chain of Power. You have the Rosicrucians. You have the Committee of 300. You have the Council of 33. That's High Freemasonry. And then you got the 13 families. But you also have the Templars, you have the banking system, there's other things mixed in. You can go into Asia and you can look at the triad and so on and so forth. There's other aspects of it, but mainly you're looking at the 13 families on down in the human aspect of this stuff. But all these things are connected, okay? It all goes back. That's kind of the point. I'm not trying to go off on a rabbit trail from UFOs or aliens. I'm just saying that all these things are connected, and you have to see the framework in order to understand it. So when you're dealing with what we're going to talk about, and that has to do with, a lot of people will talk about Project Bluebeam, okay? Or they will go into, for example, the trumpet sounds that I think that started in 2015, where people were hearing the strange trumpet sounds all around the world. Okay. Um, a lot of people would say, well, what they're going to do, people that get into Project Bluebeam, is that they're going to use holographic technology and they're going to, use other things to basically dupe the world into believing that we're being invaded by aliens, along with other, types of coercion and tactics like, I don't know, pandemics, for example, and they're going to use that to bring in a new world order and other things that they want to institute to have total control, to have a type of totalitarian system. A lot of people say, well, that's the kingdom of the Antichrist. You can look at it that way. I don't believe that's necessarily true. I believe that it is definitely satanic. Okay, just like Egypt and Assyria and all that stuff. Those were they were definitely not of the God of Israel. Okay, and when you get into Egypt, of course, God demonstrated against those false gods with all the plagues and so on and so forth. And that was the first kingdom after the Tower of Babel. And like I said earlier, when you get into the pagan cultures, they were dealing with beings that they were trying to transcend into. When you get into Akhenaten, and you get into the elongated skulls and so on and so forth that they have found. And a lot of those were people that were doing head wrappings, right? But it started out where it was a type of, well, the theory goes that it was a type of genetic hybrid human being cross Nephilim or Seraph, more specifically, which goes into the reptilian theory, where of course I don't believe that there's reptilians that come from Zeta Reticuli, but if you're going to get into the biblical account, you're going back into what was known as a Nakash or a seraph, right, or a fiery serpent. So you would have a type of being that was viewed as a type of reptilian. When you get into looking at some of the pictures of these individuals with the elongated skulls, naturally, not the head wrappings, you have a more of a slanted eye structure, a different look to the face, an elongated type of cranium, and I think they were taller as well. But there are things like that going on. But the point is they believe that they're communicating with beings or entities from the stars. Okay, and so when people get into this UFO thing, a lot of times that will be brought up when you can remember the movie Stargate. And of course, that was based out of Egypt, right? The whole idea was that these aliens, these beings, were communicating and had come down and created the Egyptian pyramids and everything. But when you get into Project Bluebeam, the whole idea is that society has been prepped by Hollywood, that Hollywood has been infiltrated. So when you get into the secret societies, when you get into Freemasonry or the elements that go into the government, whether it's the president's being related or whatever, you have a type of infiltration into all these areas of society. Okay, so you have a type of cabal, you have the deep state, right? And evidently, in Project Bluebeam, using Hollywood to prep the minds of the world for this final trick that they're going to pull, this final game that is going to be played, the ace in the hole, where they basically use technology not only to fake this alien invasion and get people to believe that the New World Order or the globalist agenda, the globalization of world trade under a digital currency, or like I said, a lot of people will equate that to the Antichrist kingdom or the mark of the beast. Um, I don't believe it is. I believe that that's more specific. I believe that there's other things going on. That's not what this video is about. But it's definitely, like I said, satanic. And there's definitely things going on. We can see that in the government. But you can't be distracted by the human element. Okay, kingdoms come and go. I already mentioned, all the way back to the Tower of Babel. You have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and now we're moving into that final stage. I believe when if you're going to look at that, you could get into Neom City over there in Saudi Arabia in connection with Mecca, where you have that image. And of course, if you combine that with the shrine up on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, along with the Al Aqsa Mosque on the wing of the Temple Mount, and then you get into the description of the Antichrist in the book of Daniel. He's not going to regard the God of his fathers. Of course, the people in the Muslim faith were originally from Ishmael and Esau, who were Hebrews technically. Right now, they honor Allah, who fits the description of the Antichrist in the sense that he's going to honor the god of forces or fortresses with gold, silver, and precious stones and all that. When you look at the tapestry that they put over the image in Mecca, that's like, I don't know, around $6 million, and they do it every year. It's brand new every year. It's a lot of money. Of course, Saudi Arabia has a lot of money. And of course, they built that whole city around the image. And, when you get into certain things like that, you have the Antichrist not regarding the desire of women. What was the desire of all the Hebrews to bring forth the Messiah? Of course, that fits the definition of the Antichrist, because he is not going to believe that God has a son, which, of course, is written all over the shrine up there on the Temple Mount. Okay. But the point I'm getting at is I do believe there's a deep state agenda. I believe a lot of things are going on, but I do not believe that the New World Order is the kingdom of the Antichrist. I think that's one of the other deceptions that's going along. Okay. And people are kind of mishmashing all these things together. And I think that they are setting themselves up for persecution because they're going to fight against the government. Like I said, this is deep state stuff. A lot of people believe that everybody in the government is corrupt. That's not true. Okay, it's simply not true. There's a lot of these things are compartmentalized, but it all goes back to the principalities and powers. When you're dealing with UFOs, when you're dealing with this phenomena, individuals who have been experiencing the abductions or even sleep paralysis, or they've been experiencing, seeing the UFOs or the grays or other beings or, all these things that go along with it. Well, a lot of them have negative experiences, and when they cry out to God, or they may, seek help from a pastor or something like that, this stuff stops. Okay, that's recorded in a lot of these accounts. People that are in the occult or in the New Age movement are seeing this stuff on a regular basis. Their experiences may not be as negative as some of the things that will drive people to cry out to God, but it's very suspicious to me that these things are going to just disappear all of a sudden when the name of Jesus is applied to the scenario or the Christian faith or the gospel. Okay, that's that's pretty obvious that something's going on in the spiritual dimension. Okay, one of the other inconsistencies has to do with the spacecraft. Okay, the whistleblower said that there were crafts that were commandeered, bodies, so on and so forth. Well, there are other people that have come forward and said that yes, the government has encountered these things, but they haven't gotten any craft, because from what they have talked about, these things are not physical. Okay, they appear and disappear. They are, like they're having the near miss encounters, which leads into a type of plot where it's almost an attack, right? So that kind of goes into the Project Bluebeam stuff. But the idea that you have two different explanations on the whistleblower end. Now we have these physical crafts, but that it doesn't match up with the evidence that people are dealing with. So they kind of threw in this holographic technology on top of it. Well, something can't necessarily be both. So the idea is that the craft from the other side of the testimony that they're saying these things are extra dimensional types of vehicles or manifestations, and it has to do with light or plasma. Okay, it's not a physical craft. They're not shooting down these things. They're not really engaging them the way the whistleblowers come out. So you have two different accounts. The disclosure that came out recently is talking about physical crafts. It's talking about physical evidence, whereas the individuals that seem to be more consistently going along with what we've heard about these things is that they're extra dimensional, because you hear about them turning maybe at a 90-degree angle or whatever, and just taking off at speeds that would defy the laws of physics, okay, or whatever, or they would appear and reappear and so on and so forth. And like I said, throwing the holographic, explanation into the physicality of having bodies and crafts, it seems inconsistent to me. Okay, maybe there's things I'm not aware of, but it doesn't seem to fit. Okay, so we've got a lot of inconsistencies. Okay, when people are whistleblowers, they're doing it because they want the public to know. Well, it seems as though that's not the case now, because we have information being teased out. We have a skiff. In other words, there's meetings going on behind closed doors where this information is being talked about. But is it ever going to be released to the public? And if it is, when? Right? That's the whole point. So the whole thing seems to be very contradictive. Okay, the evidence seems to be contradictive. And like I said, there's no spiritual element involved in this stuff. And when you get into the personal accounts, whether you're dealing with people in the occult or the New Age, yeah, they believe that we were seeded here by aliens. The evidence is consistent. Okay, most of the people involved in the occult, on the dark side of the scenario, will say, well, these things are spirit guides, right? They will talk to them. Of course, they will get secret knowledge and hidden wisdom. And like I said, all these things are connected in the sense that there's a congruency, whether you're dealing with the secret societies, whether you're dealing with the Space Brothers, whether you're dealing with a type of government secret program. They're all mingled together, and it all traces back to a spiritual origin. It all traces back to the principalities and powers. It all seems to be very consistent, and that we are dealing with something from another dimension. We're not necessarily dealing with beings that are traveling here in physical crafts from other galaxies. Okay, that defies the laws of physics first, right? And like I said, when you get into this holographic type of explanation, it doesn't match up. And there's a demoralizing effect that comes out of all the information that people are trying to sift through. Okay, so you got different groups of people. There are people that are just tired of it. They're tired of disinformation, and they don't trust the government. They don't believe any of this, but they do believe something is going on. They believe it's a type of distraction. We're being distracted from something else that's going on. And of course, there's probably elements that are true, but then you have the other group of people who are saying, well, I think there's something going on here. Okay. And then there's kind of two subsets of that group where, some people will say, well, there's something bigger happening, and the government is just trying to let us know what is happening, because eventually everybody's going to find out, and something big is about to happen. Then you have the other people who are saying, well, no, I think that the government's pulling something, and they're trying to set the stage. Okay, by the government, I mean the deep state. Okay, like when you get into the military-industrial complex, that's not necessarily the government. Okay, if you're going to use an example, so there's three, I guess, groups. The one is on to the fact that, yeah, there's disinformation going on here, and there's inconsistencies, and we think that it's just baloney. Okay, but the other two people, I think, are more accurate. because there's more going on here. Why do I say that? Because there's historical evidence, okay? And there's a type of agenda to obfuscate the truth about that, okay? And that is the origins of these things, how it's connected to the spiritual dimension, how it's connected to the principalities and powers, and that stuff has been covered up for a long time, okay? When you get into the late Dr. Michael Heiser, he was a pioneer in that. He opened up the scriptures concerning these things, okay? And rather than to believe that we are being contacted, like the New Age or the occult would say, by these spirit guides who, the polytheism comes down to different things, or, and more of a New Age aspect is that, religion is false, and really it's always been this, type of centralized unity, like maybe a philosophical Gnostic, Manichaean type of deity or something like that, or reality. And religion is always just trying to explain something that it couldn't. And Jesus was just someone who kind of woke up to these things. And so you got a type of obfuscation, because none of that is true, and it doesn't match up with history. And we've had people who have had literal encounters. We've had people who have had experiences that I believe they're telling the truth about. But the problem is people are misinterpreting things. That's what I think is going on, and I think it is it's a dark agenda. It is something that is literally demonic. Okay, and I think that I'm speculating, but when you deal with the secret societies, when you deal even with the polytheism and so on and so forth, or the deep state, or secret societies in general, who are ruling behind the scenes, and there's corruption involved in that, they're basically puppets, okay? So what I'm getting at is, I think there is an agenda. I think there is something going on. I think we are at the very end of Bible prophecy. We're pretty close. I'm not saying I know when Jesus is going to return or anything like that. I think it's going to be very soon, though. What I mean by that is it could be, within the next 5, 10, 15 years. It might be 100 years. It might be 500 years. But really, in the scheme of things, that's not very long. If I had to guess, I would say that we're looking at maybe another 50 years max. But I don't know that. Okay, but the point is we're in a very unique time in history. Okay, so the fact that we're dealing with this stuff in the news, the fact that the government has come out and said that we're dealing with things that are not of this world. Okay, and we're looking at all the other evidence. Even when you get into the things like the Skinwalker Ranch. Where Bigelow was doing his research and everything, the things that they were looking at were pretty scary, in the sense that the communication was that, we've been trying to contact and communicate with man for a long time. In other words, they were almost pretending these things that they were looking into, and this is consistent in the occult, that they were pretending like, we're really God. Forget about Christianity, forget about Jesus and all that stuff. We were trying to get a message through to you, and what's going to eventually happen, and that is religion is false, or religion is actually the enemy. Okay, because when you look at religion, especially over in the Middle East, where biblical prophecy is going to be fulfilled, in my opinion, there is a huge potential for some pretty nasty conflicts that are prophesied to happen. Okay, there's going to be war, and the idea that we're going to mix in the New Age and all this stuff with this alien type of experience that supposedly is going on, and this wisdom, like I said, that comes from this hidden wisdom and secret knowledge. All these things are connected. And what you're going to have is a type of delusion or deception involved in the manifestation of these things. And it's demonic. Okay, it's already been deceiving people for a long time. And like I said, when you get back into Egypt, they believed that they were dealing with the same thing. Okay, Um, and so it's consistent throughout history. We have evidence that mankind has been dealing with principalities and powers, and they've been masquerading as God. They've been masquerading with their, false religions and so on and so forth, drawing men away to worship them and so on and so forth. And we're heading into a pretty significant area, I think, not only of Bible prophecy, but to where I think we're going to have some interaction with the spiritual dimension concerning this topic of aliens. And that's what it's going to be. It's not going to be people or beings from another, planetary system, from Zeta Reticuli or the Orion or some other place. This is an interaction with the spiritual dimension, with the principalities and powers. And of course, we know what they're doing. They are deceiving mankind. They want to devour, they want to take as many captive with deception as possible. Okay. And who knows if it's going to play in to the son of perdition, the Antichrist, or whatever. Who knows? Okay. But it's certainly going to be something that we're dealing with. If it fades out and just fizzles out, I'd be pretty surprised, especially after what we saw in the news and the disclosure and all this publicity concerning this stuff. People are going to want to know. Okay. I know people are very distracted, but I don't think it's just going to fade away. And I don't know exactly what's happening, but I do know the origins. Okay. And there's a lot of speculation. I'm probably going to have to make another video about this because there's a lot of different sources of information. Okay. You got the holographic technology that supposedly is going along with actual things that are extra dimensional, and the government is working alongside, or the deep state is working alongside, these beings, these entities that some people believe are, other things than the principalities and powers. I believe that's what that is, and they're going to use not only lying signs and wonders, but modern day, high technology, whether it's known or unknown, to propagate a delusion. Okay, am I saying that that's the delusion talked about in Second Thessalonians? No, but it could play into that. It could play into those things. It's definitely something that has plagued the planet ever since the principalities and powers came to be. Okay, and they've been using that same modus operandi, that same methodology, to deceive man all the way back to Egypt. One of the other speculations that a lot of people have used in religious circles, especially the dispensational crowd, is that this is going to obfuscate the rapture, right? So we're going to have a type of pre-tribulation rapture, and the kingdom of darkness is going to use this type of alien deception to fool people into believing that, of course, they were not raptured, they were just abducted. Okay, I don't believe that, but however, I do believe that it is possible that there could be a deception in the sense that they could make people believe there was a rapture, and that the Christians who are here will believe that they missed the rapture. Okay, when I mentioned the trumpet sounds and stuff like that, and you can Google that stuff, by the way. It sounds very ominous. Okay, it sounds like a big, huge shofar or something. Okay, and if they mixed in some of this holographic technology, using drones and all kinds of other things, who knows exactly what we can do. People would say, well, we don't really have holographic technology like that. They have to project it onto something, whether it be a piece of glass or, well, we could actually spray something in the atmosphere using satellites or drones or something and project it onto that, possibly. I don't know. But the disturbing reality is that we have been prepped for this stuff. We have been indoctrinated with Hollywood and other things. And like I said, really technically, you go all the way back to Egypt. So, historically, mankind, period, has been prepped for these types of delusions, that we are being contacted by space brothers or spirit guides, and that Jesus Christ is not the reality, it's not the truth, religion is false, and that there's another way. Okay, very dangerous. And I guess we'll find out. This video was just to lay out the framework of what I believe is really going on. I believe this is definitely something that's demonic. I believe it's connected to the principalities and powers, and I think historically we can see that this delusion has been propagated to mankind all the way back to Egypt. There's actually a lot of information that I didn't go into from sources that I don't really believe I can necessarily verify. There's people who they go a lot deeper into the deep state agenda and maybe possible demonic connections, and that they're literally like working with these things, whether they understand what they are or not. But like I said, this is just the first video. So it's going to take me a while to go through all that stuff and present something that's coherent. But it's important to know what it is. If nothing else, it's definitely not people from Zeta Reticuli or some other place out in the cosmos. This is definitely something that is dimensional. It's definitely something that goes historically back to the principalities and powers. Thanks for watching.